right, y'all, turn that volume knob up a click and settle on in. Welcome back to the table. This is episode 9 of Track and Vector, Star Wars Unlimited podcast, where we cut through the online algorithm noise and focus on real tabletop strategy, grassroots community culture, and of course, the material joy of the hobby. As you probably already know, I'm your host, Taco Pete. Now, today's flight plan is titled Planetary Bound, Increased Front Deflector Shields, and folks, we got a lot of exciting radar hits to cover today. First off, I've got to give a massive, heartfelt thank you to our YouTube community. Episode 6 picked up some serious traction. That's the episode we kicked off from the galactic floor. It's pushing past 40 views, which, as you might know, for a niche grassroots TCG broadcast, well, for me, that represents a full room of passionate players pulling up a chair to listen to our strategy. So, big thanks to everyone for hitting like, subscribing, and leaving takes in the comments. We read them all here at Track and Vector. And watch your sensors, because yours truly, along with my trusty co-pilot Testaburger, are packing up the deck pods and heading down to Florida early Saturday morning for a planetary qualifier at Game Corps. That's right, we are taking the Tracking Vector flight pan directly into competitive PQ territory down at Gamers Corps. My weapon of choice for the tournament floor, it's going to be a Bo Katan Command Heroism Space Swarm cluster build with a few special surprises up my sleeve. Now, as you know, the meta has been heavily dominated by cold Imperial pings and, well, Cad Bane tempo decks. This Space Swarm brings a completely different flavor of overwhelming board pressure. The strategy is simple. Flood the space arena early with low-cost fighters. Establish that massive footprint and leverage Ackbar's tactical ability to turn sheer unit density into unblockable damage swings before the opponent can even stabilize. And you know, for me, there's strategy and then there's fun. Now, my hopes for this is that this is going to be a really fun deck with some strategic value. So, regardless, I plan on having a good time. We'll be breaking down the exact playmat math of this swarm built in the Efficiency Engine. Now, speaking of community transmissions, let's check into our newest component of the show. We're talking flight logs. We've been plugging it on TikTok, trying to get some traction, and here we are. So, votes on this episode's Card Art of the Week matchup were between two cards custom chosen by yours truly. We're talking EJ De La Cruz's momentum-fueled Legacy Run Doom Debris Prestige version. I was actually talking about that promo version from Galactic. And Brian Matthias' Moff Gideon Prestige card as well. These were sitting at a dead heat. So to break the tie, I reached out to a fellow SWU content creator and absolute legend. We're talking Tom Sko over on TikTok. Tom Sko stepped up to the mic, cast a tiebreaker vote, and dropped some awesome feedback for the flight log. Thank you, Tom Sko, for making Moff Gideon the winner. What Tom Sko said, and I quote, "Well, I voted for the Moff Gideon art. I think in the history of SWU's many character faces, they've been kind of rough. And on that card, the face is amazing. I'm also a big fan of the prestige design in Ashes in general. The card has some presence and has a very nice look to it. Legacy Run is still a fantastic looking card, but the style of the prestige and the very realistic art, while still fitting the SWU vibe, made it a winner for me." In cute quote. Huge thanks to Tom Sko for helping us settle the ledger here. Make sure to check out his content on TikTok. I'll include a link in the comments section. You are going to find some awesome info on the upcoming Homeworlds set on his feed. Tom Sko is a regular poster, continuously putting good stuff out there. Check him out, like, subscribe to his channel, and I think you'll thank me for it later. Now, having Moff Gideon win the art card of the week, well, that's just a big win up for me, right? So we've got to select next week's art card of the week. I think I'm going to run a custom pick and turn the flight logs for next week into something else. So we'll talk about that more later. But Tom Sko, I got to agree with you. The Moff Gideon card looks absolutely amazing. I was actually a fan of the Legacy run. I think that's a really awesome looking card, and I've been known to use it in my decks, but I mean, I totally get that Moff Gideon approach. And, I did choose both of these for the flight deck. So thanks again, Tom Sco. It's great having you on the show. And I appreciate your feedback, and I'll be checking out your feed later. All right, coming up next in the Homeworlds Horizon, we're going to dive into the online chatter surrounding Set 4, which again lands on October 9th. Then, in the Efficiency Engine, we'll run the number on Ackbar's Space Swarm protocol in this custom-built deck for Gamer Corps. And finally, the Analog Archive. Well, I plan on giving a massive shout-out to the unsung heroes of TCGplayer that keep our card pools supplied week after week after week. So, if you haven't already, go ahead, pull up a chair, grab your card sleeves, let's roll out the mats. Let's lock our crosshairs onto segment 2 as we bring the lore and core segment to the Homeworld Horizon and the Rebel Fleet. Now, if you've been following the community feeds this week, the hype for Set 4, Homeworlds, dropping October 9th, is officially at a fever pitch. Fantasy Flight just dropped their Riddles from Home article. I gave it a read. I loved it. They're teasing new mechanics like base fortifications. Using that term fortify, I think that's going to be a lot of fun in the upcoming set. They've also got planetary base traits like Endor, Tatooine, and then they're throwing out or hinting at these weakness tokens, which are actually going to strip stats off enemy units. So it makes perfect sense having just unlocked the advantage tokens where we're adding these quick one-hit wonders to the cards on the table. I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing to flip that script and then bring in these weakness tokens. It's going to be a good time. So between Grand Moff Tarkin deploying as the literal Death Star in the space arena, and we've got Chewbacca leading an Ewok and creature assault, the design space in this game is just blowing wide open. And I can tell you from being there, the excitement on the floor of Galactics during this set drop, it was palpable. People were loud. People were excited. I remember one of the judges, he was absolutely boiling over at the upcoming Chewbacca Relentless Rebel Leader. He was stuck on the judge floor side of the side event side of the tournament. The unveil was going on the opposite side of the arena, and he was dying to get into it. So I ran into his frantic calls that there is a card with Chewbacca as a leader coming out of a tank. Can somebody show me this? Now, I actually think Chewbacca is not coming out of a tank, but perhaps a chicken walker on Endor, but I don't want to get lost in the details. It was a great moment, made a great memory at Galactic, and this leader card looks amazing. And of course, to top it off, it allows you to attack with an exhausted unit. There's a lot of new stuff coming with this Homeworld set, and I can't wait to see it on tap. So, speaking of getting dialed in for the Gamers Cores, our Flight Logs community choice this week proved you don't need a $1,000 chase card to make a statement on the playmat. I mean, that's what I'm talking about here on Track and Vector, right? This isn't about that $1,000 card, right? On Track and Vector, we are showing what anyone has an option to do on the SWU table. And as Tom Sco pointed out, character presentation and art style are what make physical cardboard feel great in your hand. So keeping this hobby accessible, affordable, and focused on player experience, well, you all know that's what this show here is all about. And that's going to dial us right on into the lore to core mechanics. Now, on this segment, we examine how the design team over at FFG takes decades of Star Wars cinematic history, and then they translate it directly into mechanical rules on cardboard. And today, we're going to be looking at the tactical doctrine of the Rebel Fleet Alliance. And this topic isn't necessarily new for us. I seem to tap back into this round after round here on Track and Vector, but I mean, it proves the point. In Star Wars lore, when the Rebel Alliance faces down an Imperial fleet, they just don't win by standing still and trading direct blows with the Star Destroyer. We all saw how that worked out on the Battle of Hoth. The Empire wants a static, heavy engagement where raw firepower will always win. The Alliance? The Alliance wins through coordinated strikes, rapid deployment, high-velocity space superiority, right? From the Battle of Yavin straight through to Endor, the Rebel strategy relies on crowding the space with X-Wings, Y-Wings, fast transports to get those troops out of harm's way and striking in formation before the enemy defense grid can lock them down. I mean, think about it for a minute. How many times have you seen that Rebel fleet blow in from hyperspace and just drop right into battle? It's always made for an iconic scene in the movies, and it's going to hit even harder on the playmat. I can hear the sounds of those ships dropping out of hyperspace now. So look at how brilliantly that tactical lore translates into this Command Heroism Space Swarm build for the Gamer Core PQ. And it's cards like Admiral Ackbar, it's these low-cost space units that allow us to build a deck like this. And we've got to thank FFG for putting these cards in our hands, right? They are the company that has built the lore, the mechanics into these cards to allow us to dig into and create these fun decks that we continue to come back and play again and again. So instead of sitting back and waiting for slow, high-cost in-game battle cruisers, right? This 50-card set, we're going to flood that space arena with low-cost, high-synergy fighter units. We're packing full play sets, Proctorate Fighters, Red Leader, Red Squadron X-Wings, Y-Wings, supporting ETA-2Ts, along with heavy hitters like throwing in a little Poe Dameron, one hell of a pilot, and of course the old Millennium Falcon, get out and push. Then, what we hope happens with this particular deck is we're going to drop the ultimate tactical enforcer into the ground arena. Admiral Ackbar, assume attack coordinates. And Ackbar is not just going to sit on the field. We have seen this with Ackbar. It's a trap. Couldn't help it. When played, his assume attack coordinates ability allows you to defeat him on command to search your top 10 cards and instantly drop up to a 5 cost worth of space units right onto the playmat for free. I mean, for me, this is that ultimate jump to light speed fleet drop I mentioned earlier. You're just pounding some cards down onto the playmat, dropping them in out of nowhere. You're sacrificing a ground commander to instantly flood the skies with Red Squadron fighters, overwhelming the opponent's space defenses in a single action phase. I mean, for me, this is a master class in translating movie lore straight into the tabletop math. So up next in the Efficiency Engine, we're going to run the numbers on how this low curve space list is going to choke out slow control decks. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, now that we've mapped out the Rebel fleet lore, let's pivot directly into the Efficiency Engine. So, as you know, this is where we run the numbers and we look at the actual playmat velocity of this new Ackbar Space Swarm list heading into Gamer Cores. We're going to see how this deck works. So, if you've been tracking the competitive meta, a lot of players have been over-indexing on ground combat or relying on slow finishers. But in Star Wars Unlimited, the space arena is often where games are won, especially when you flood the skies faster than your opponent can deploy space removal. So this build's engineered around one core principle: space domain dominance and action economy exploitation. So instead of fighting through heavy ground sentinels, we're just going to dump our curve into low-cost space fighters. Now, on paper, cards like Proctorate Fighter, Red Squadron X-Wing, and BB-8 Happy Beeps, they look like simple, efficient units. But what I'm thinking is when you stack their deployment velocity with Ackbar's abilities, the mathematical trade ledger shifts heavily in your favor. And plus, as you know, I love a Lord of Core deck, something that taps into that theme of the Star Wars universe. So why is this build going to be so lethal against slow control or ground heavy list? You know, it's going to come down to 3 what I think are going to be mathematical advantages. Space Arena asymmetry. Most meta decks these days are committing 60 to 70% of their footprint to ground. We see it at all the tournaments. Ground heavy, space light. Now, by loading this list with 2-cost and 3-cost space runners like Red Leader, we're going to force the opponent into some pretty awkward defensive plays. Or, you know, that's the hope. And if it doesn't work, we're going to have a lot of fun trying it out. Now, Ackbar has got the free deployment math too, so that when you play the Admiral Ackbar assume attack coordinates, this defeat ability is going to let you dig 10 cards deep into the top of your deck, deploy up to 5 resources worth of space units for free, and you're going to be able to drop some ships onto the playmat quickly, just like they're pulling out of hyperspace. The hope is this will turn the tide of the game. And then you got rally and buff stacking, right? So we'll use cards like Red Leader and Luke Skywalker, You Still With Me, to turn a broad board into escalating threat, right? A single coordination trigger turns 6 total damage into, well, I mean, hopefully 10 to 12 base crunching damage in a single phase. And of course, there's always the chance you don't pull the cards you need and they end up wiping the table with you. But I'm cool with it. It's going to be fun while we do it. So don't sleep on the velocity of this low space curve. I want you to dig into your collection, pull out those space play sets, pair them with Ackbar's deployment triggers, and test the speed and the limits of your build. And of course, we're using that Bo Katan leader. So the hope is that as we're flooding the space arena, tapping into some ground units, you got to have them, that we're able to trigger Katan's ability to drop some Mandos in there too. I mean, it's really all about the swarm without it being built as primarily an aggressive forward deck. So up next, in the analog archive, we're going to give a massive spotlight to the unsung heroes of the TCG player that's, you know, they're keeping our decks supplied. They keep the cards coming. They have us excited about checking the mail. And we're going to give them a proper shout out and thank you. In the analog archive today, I want to spotlight the independent online card shops and those TCG player sellers who keep our deck pod stoked and the playlist complete. I've got just a handful that I try to order from on a regular basis, and they have proven time after time after time to provide fast shipping, quality packaging, friendly service, solid updates along the way, and I just have not had any issues with these shops. I'm talking Hawk's Nest Gaming. Now, Hawk's Nest is operating right out of Georgia, so, you know, I'm a Georgia pilot. I have a particular fondness for ordering in-state. Shipping tends to be incredibly fast. And these guys over at Hawk's Nest Gaming, they do a great job. They're offering lightning fast regional shipping, and they will ship anywhere. I'm just in Georgia, so I like to throw that regional support on top. And we were able to catch up with their crew in person at Galactics. That was a highlight. It turned out we were sitting catty-cornered to them on the side events. Got to give them a quick shout out, thank them for the great job they're doing. And they're just genuine community first gamers. So big shout out to Hawk's Nest Gaming over at TCGplayer. Let's also give a shout out to Mississippi Heat TCG. They are super fast southern seller, and you know, they're delivering top-notch packaging. They've got competitive prices. It's been a really positive experience ordering from them. Again, another southeast corner of the nation card supplier over at TCGplayer, and they just have never disappointed. So great job, Mississippi Heat TCG. I appreciate everything you're doing out there on TCGplayer. And last but certainly not least is our dear friends over at TwilekBlue Cards out of Ohio. This TCGplayer shop's run by Brandon, who happened to pod up with us right off the bat at the tables over there at Galactics this year. He runs what I find to be one of the friendliest, like just most reliable storefronts on TCGplayer. And even though he's out of Ohio, his shipping down here to Georgia has always been incredibly fast incredibly friendly service, and sometimes you might even get a blue Twi'lek sticker in that envelope, and that's pretty cool. So great job out there, Brandon, running TwilekBlue Cards. We appreciate you here on Track and Vector. Keep up the great work. We'll probably be ordering from you soon. So if you can, if you're thinking about it, support these independent sellers, right? They keep our physical community thriving. They're good peeps, they're doing good bias, and they're keeping that swoo momentum kicking in the hyperdrive. And that brings our flight pan for episode 9 to a close. If you're thinking about it, wish us luck as we head down to Gamer Corps in Florida this Saturday for the Planetary Qualifier. We hope to have a good time. Follow along on TikTok, and maybe we'll be able to do a YouTube Florida dispatch as well. Regardless, we'll have a good time. We'll let you know how we did, and win or lose, it's going to be good being a part of that community. Now, I do want to go ahead and drop our next flight log community prompt. So this is the question I'm posing to you. If you get a chance, tap into our TikTok thread over at Track and Vector Podcast, or follow up in the comments below and let me know what you think. So for episode 10, the flight log transmission, we want to tap directly into the physical playmat experience. And so what I'm talking about is when you're sitting down to build your deck, this is something all of us do, right? Do you strictly optimize every single slot for the highest win rate metamath? Or do you make room for cards simply because they bring you joy on the table? Now, whether that's incredible card art, nostalgia for a favorite Star Wars scene, or maybe it's just a personal homebrew combo, let us know your take. Drop your takes in our Spotify Q&A, leave a comment on YouTube, or just tag us on TikTok. Tell us about that one card you refuse to let out of your deck, or tell us how tightly you run that ship and you stick to that raw meta math to make your wins almost guaranteed. So we'll read the transmissions on air next week, and we look forward to hearing from you. Transmit those takes across our socials. Share this episode with a buddy in your local shop's Discord, or, if you're sitting across from somebody at a playmat, you're talking shop, let them know we exist. That's what keeps a community like this going. Until then, keep your collection safe, protect those card edges, and keep your eyes locked on the tracking vector. I'm Taco Pete, signing off.